I don't know if anybody else wants to. I have one other question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
We contract Sheriff's Department, CHP to be on our streets. It's my understanding we contract El Dorado EDSO. We already pay taxes to have them respond to calls for service. And I did just a little research past, within a year, we've had 0 calls for service that require an urgent response. And it's my understanding, when the sheriff came out here, someone had told me that El Dorado EDSO only allocates 1 deputy for the entire El Dorado Hills area. I'm not talking about Serrano where we have 4,000 residents, but what is it, like 35,000 in El Dorado Hills, because there's just no calls for service. So a couple questions. A, why are we paying for a deputy to patrol our streets given that we don't have any calls for service? And B, I went to the traffic committee meeting. I found out that we have, for that 1 month, about 5 complaints. Well, we have 4,000 residents, and give or take, there's 2 cars for each residence. And obviously, this isn't exact science. So that's 8,000 cars. Multiply that by 30 days, that's 240,000. Even if I'm off by 50,000, 200,000. Let's just put it at let's put it at 150,000 cars roaming our streets. 5 complaints. And someone had asked me, well, what are we supposed to do if somebody complains? Well, we got a speeder, driving by. You call the Highway Patrol just like any other community does. So why are we paying $80,000 a year for the Highway Patrol and the Sheriff's Office to be in our community if it's really not solving a problem? Because we don't really have a problem other than an isolated speeder here and there. And I've lived in our community for 11 years. Yeah, there are people that go through a rolling stop sign 2-3 miles an hour, usually when there's no cars coming together at an intersection. Yeah, we do have speeders, that might, not go 25, they're going 30, 35, or 40. We haven't had any accidents, my understanding. We might have had one, I don't know the circumstances of that. So we don't have a problem. Why are we spending $80,000 a year?
And again, I need to be fair to these guys. I'm on the Traffic and Safety Committee. We just formed that, what, 3 months ago? 3-4 months ago, give or take. So I have some answers, but I want to give you an answer, but it's kind of not fair to these guys because they're not on that committee and they don't know so I don't want to.
Well, actually, shouldn't he be asking that of the existing board as opposed to candidates?
He should, but I have some perspective I'm happy to share, and it might go towards my state of mind. If you think my answer, I'm a nut job, then that would help to your suitability question as to whether or not I'm a suitable candidate. But I just don't, I know that's a tough on-the-spot question for you guys, and I have an answer, but I want to...
Yeah, I really don't have an answer. I think that it is a big issue. I know it's a big issue. Traffic and speeding and all of that. People running stop signs. It's a huge issue, and it continues to be an issue. So something has to be done, and Robert did. He was the one that I think advocated the traffic meeting, right?
I did.
So there you go. He's proactive.
I think the big question is, do we really need both law enforcement?
So let me, do you mind? No, heck no. I don't want to waste your folks' time, but let me give you the 5,000-foot answer. The reason I asked for Traffic and Safety Committee was the exact reason that you brought up. We have a 2-year CHP contract at $80,000 a year. So it's a $160,000 a year contract for a certain number of hours for a CHP officer that's dedicated to our community. We spend $60,000 a year for the Sheriff's Office for supplemental patrols. Prior to the inception of the Traffic and Safety Committee, there was no organized way to track the complaints that would come in for speeding. So again, we've been here 20 years, and in 20 years, it just was never a priority to figure out, are we aligning our resources with the problem? So the Traffic and Safety Committee just last month, through a lot of hard work of volunteers, not just me, this is hard work with owners, like we're talking about, owners involved, created a process when someone calls in to complain about speeding, a flow chart kicks into gear. Our security manager may put out a speed sign or one of the trailers and conduct a survey. Do we really have a problem? Is the speed above the median to the point that it's an issue? If yes, then go to box 2. Use our private security patrol. If it's a stop sign, watch the stop sign during certain hours. Are people running the stop sign? If yes, go to 3. Deploy the CHP to those areas to address those specific problems. Then circle back with the owner and say, here's what we've done. We've gone out to your community, we did a speed survey, we did a visual site inspection, we deployed CHP. CHP wrote 12 tickets, survey it again at the end. If the speed drops, you have aligned your need with the problem. So I would support it if it goes to actual problems for Serrano residents. What I didn't like was the idea that you were paying a CHP officer to just drive around Serrano for 3 hours. That I don't know is an efficient use of our resources. Remember, the streets in Serrano are private. Okay, so we had to enter into a special agreement with the state of California to enforce the vehicle code on our streets. We've done that. So my issue, my goal, and if I'm lucky enough to get on the board, and I'll tell you now, I want to be the chair of the Traffic and Safety Committee meeting, Traffic and Safety Group, because I want to make sure that the CHP is giving us data that directly aligns to what you complain about. They're not here just to drive around and show off a black and white. They're here to address the specific problems in the community. Now, just because we signed a contract doesn't mean you have to deploy them. So if you are down to 1 or 2 complaints a month, you cut in half the number of hours you use. It's not an automatic, we give them all the money up front. It's billable as they do it. So let's align the resource with the need and then make an educated decision as to whether we need it. Because honestly, up until now, it's just been whatever the security director decided. Have them here on a Thursday, then bring them here on a Saturday, without aligning it towards any logical purpose. Now the sheriff comes in here Friday and Saturday nights in the evening because those are typically their busiest nights. And as you pointed out, if you call for a sheriff's deputy, it's going to be a while, because there's only one here for this whole area. Remember, the sheriff's office goes all the way to Tahoe. They got a lot of area to cover with very few deputies. Again, we need to align the need versus the use. And maybe there's a consolidation that can take place. Sheriff's deputies can write tickets too. So maybe it makes sense to, if we're going to use CHP and or the sheriff, one or the other. But what I like about it is this Traffic and Safety Committee's got 8 or 9 owners on it, appointed by the board. They're the ones making these recommendations. And if it's coming from owners, I'm comfortable with it. If you can show me an owner complaint, we investigated, we saw there was a problem, we deployed CHP and it reduced the problem, then to me that's money well spent. If you can't show me that, if the balance scales don't tip, we got to look at whether or not what we're going to spend our money on. Is that something we need to be spending our money on? I'm going to agree with both of these gentlemen. I think all the finances need a good look, and that's one of the areas. Is this something we need to be spending our money on right now? I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's in review.
Okay, that's good. But as far as, if we're not getting any calls for service for El Dorado Sheriff's Office, will we know if there's any calls for service? In other words, if someone calls in and says, yeah, someone had stolen something out of my garage, the deputy's got to come out anyway.
Correct.
So, big question I have is, given that there's no urgent calls to have an immediate response, so that's something we're going to monitor, and if we find out that we don't have that need for that service, we're going to continue paying for that service.
I would like to think we could get to, we just finished with CHP, we just got them set up. The next one is to start looking at the sheriff. What are we getting for our buck? But what I would like is exactly what you did. He's an owner that showed up to the committee meeting and said, I've got an opinion on this and I want to be heard. And I think that's where we need to go.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.